Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Understanding Human Design podcast. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and I'm not sure if there's a word big enough to describe the way that I feel about today's interview. I want to say I'm excited, but I'm also honored and honestly a little bit fangirlish about our guest today, Kim Gould. Kim Gould specializes in taking human design beyond the rave chart. So she's not looking just at the regular chart that you get when you run your free chart, wherever you might run it. She's been looking at asteroids. She's been doing this since 2005, and she's been using the information in the transits of the asteroids that give a sort of a richer, deeper, more personal experience of human design. And I think really most importantly, and certainly most interestingly, she's been adding feminine archetypes and the possibility of using this information to really activate our feminine leadership through our understanding of human design out into the world. So thank you so much for joining me today here, Kim.
Thank you, Karen. And can I say right back at you?
It's pretty awesome. You and I have sort of been, I don't know, like rotating celestial bodies for many years together. I think
Yes.
We started our human design journey around the same time. And I have always watched you with awe and just watched your interpretation of the celestial weather was just, honestly, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, wow, I am really inadequate. You have such a really depth of knowledge that I don't have. And I think that's kind of interesting because I think never started off with any kind of understanding in astrology at all. I mean, what little I know, and I would say emphasis on little, I really have gleaned just probably from reading your stuff. And
that's really great. Well, people think I'm an astrologer, but everything that I know about astrology, I learned through human design. I have no background in astrology. So this was, for me, as someone who's self-taught in human design, other than the original mentoring that I got, which was amazing, an amazing foundation for me then to just launch out into my own area, which was just, synchronous and had to be what it was. The astrology was the easiest entry point. It was the place with the most information. And so that's where I went.
And I think that's a beautiful place to go. And I think it's a place that you have sort of crafted your own place of wisdom with it. So tell us a little bit about, why do you use asteroids? What are asteroids and what asteroids are you using?
Yeah, great. What are asteroids is a really interesting question because, it wasn't a question that I expected, but people ask me that all the time. Mm-hmm. And basically they're weird bits of rock floating around in space. So everything that's orbiting around our sun, we can put into the human design chart, and things that aren't even orbiting, things that are fixed, like black holes and fixed stars. I'm working on the stars at the moment to put them in as well, so they'll be on the chart side. So I'm so excited for that. So all of these, anything that we can put into an astrology chart, we can map into the human design chart. So back in 2005, I thought, wonder where my ascendant is, because I was reading something in astrology and they were saying, oh, your ascendant's so important. And I thought, well, I must be able to find it in my human design chart. Of course, I knew I could. So I went and looked for it, and it was the bridge gate, the one bridge gate between my two split areas. And I thought, whoa, that's really interesting. That's a really interesting thing. And then I thought, what else could I go looking for? And about that time, all those new planets, the dwarf planets, Makemake, Sedna, Eris, Haumea, they were all being discovered. So that was very exciting. And then I just started playing with asteroids, and that totally blew my mind with what the kind of information that I was able to elicit from looking at those. And I was doing it all manually to start with. So that would take me like 2 hours to get, at least 2 or 3 hours to get a chart ready, because I was having to map it all manually. And then Lisa built the website for me where we can, you can just click and it tells you, which is like a miracle. Absolute miracle. So I haven't answered your question. They're basically orbiting around our sun, but they're too small to qualify as a planet. Most of them sit between Mars and Jupiter. There are literally almost 1 million of them, but almost 95% of those are tiny, and we only work probably with maybe 100 or so. Astrologers kind of pick and choose which are their favorites.
Mm-hmm. And so which are your favorites?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. There's one called Magdalena, which I started working with. I absolutely love her. She's like the lost feminine aspect of the divine. Mm-hmm. So wherever she sits in your chart, and she sits on my Vesta. Vesta is another of my favorites, which is about, for women, what we're devoted to. And I think Vesta actually creates a kind of an intersection between what is sacred to me, what I need to really devote myself to, and that automatically goes out into the common good. So Vesta has such a strong energy around what is the common good that I'm devoted to naturally within myself. For example, Ceres, a lot of people know her. In fact, she's actually a dwarf planet on the same astronomically on the same level of importance as Pluto, and she should be in our human design chart always. She represents, such a complex archetype. But you can look at her and just say, this is what I need to nurture myself. And I always use her in purpose, her investor. She also represents, this is what I love to do to help nourish and nurture other people.
Nice.
They're important in terms of leadership, both of those planets. Go on, sorry.
So let's talk about leadership, because one of the things that you really emphasize, and I think that's one of the things you're going to be speaking about, and kind of obviously fits into the theme of our Women in Human Design conference. Yeah. Why the feminine? Why did you decide, oh, wait, we need to look at this, and what does it give us, not only as women, but what does it give us as a culture as we move into what I think is a new cycle of leadership that certainly is at least asking of us to move towards a more feminine perspective?
Yeah, I think that, if we look at the anthropology, we go back to the matriarchy and women were definitely the drivers of that culture. If I can use that very patriarchal way of describing it. Then we have this, 2,000 years of patriarchy. And what I think we're doing now is we're really starting to resolve some of the polarities or dualities in our culture. And one of those dualities is we're way out on the masculine edge of consciousness at the moment, and we need to bring it back. So one of the conundrums in that is that women really only know how to exist within the patriarchy because we've been doing it for so long, but it's still what I call our original feminine self still sits in our cells. We have the memories there. It's very difficult to actually get those filters off and find what it is to actually be this kind of original feminine archetype in the world that we're meant to be. And this is where what I call feminine DNA comes into it, because if we look at, for instance, Pandora is a great example that I often use as an archetype so each of us have Pandora somewhere in our human design chart. And Pandora, when I first started researching her, if you look at the asteroids for astrology, what you'll see, and a lot of people do this, astrologers, it's just cookie cutting. They see it somewhere on someone else's website and then they say, oh, this is what it's about. Curiosity. This is the place where you're too curious, because of course Pandora was like, I wonder what will happen if I take the lid off the jar, right? But when I actually looked into, when I say looked into it, I read about it on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is amazing. Shout out to Wikipedia. What it said was that the Pandora was actually written about by Hesiod in ancient Greece. And in the mythology, she was created as a punishment to man, to be his tormentor, because we all know women are just can't live with them, can't live without them. And so this is a patriarchal archetype of a woman who's just really pesky, and we all know that. I think so. When I looked into her, and you can dig beneath that, and when I dug beneath that, she was Pandora, all gifted. She was the goddess of the gifts that living on earth gives us, which is a much better interpretation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yes, and I love this. I especially love this because I think last year my 11-year-old, while we were homeschooling, we worked on Greek mythology, and she literally about a month into the curriculum said, "I'm done. I'm literally done. I can't listen to these horrific stories and these horrific archetypes anymore." And we
Yes.
just we had to go on an exploration to see, okay, if we could reinterpret these. And I think that's a lot of what you've done in these
Yeah.
reinterpretations. And really, we were with my daughter, I worked with her to say, okay, well, how can we find a different way to language this? How can we look at this
Yeah.
archetype from a different lens? And I think, the whole chart itself, no matter what you're looking at, offers this spectrum, right? Of here
Yeah.
versus here, and what are you going to do to get your expression consciously moving in that direction in which you intend. But when you add this piece to it, and you start to give all of us the language and the perspective around breaking free, if you will, from the patriarchy, or finding those places where we've limited the story of who we are because we've been living it under a definition that only really meets parts of our needs and parts of the true story of who we really are. So it's
Yeah, absolutely. And can I say, Karen, I think it's more than limited. Um, it, I I call it a filter, and it's like we don't actually even realize that we're limited. We don't actually even realize that it's there because we've been living through that filter for so long. We think it's part of who we are, and to actually start to to look at Pandora and say, okay, this is a place where I feel ashamed of my gifts. This is the place where I put a lid on my gifts because I think they're pesky. They're annoying. So to actually do that kind of recovery work within your human design is just astounding. It's so precise.
That's wow. That and I think too, part of the other part of it, I think in conjunction with changing the perspective and changing the vocabulary, I think the other part of it is I think we even need to change the arc of the story and the way we tell the
Yes.
story, because when we look at masculine storytelling or patriarchal storytelling arc, even the whole Joseph Campbell thing, it's like it's a very masculine model, right? You start off, you get this tension, it builds up, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
climax, and then boom,
yeah,
you're done.
yeah,
You've reached this level of wow, I got this now, right? And
yeah,
when I think about and I'm going to make this more personal in terms of my lifespan and my journey as a woman, which is a part of the feminine story. My life story is about this. It's a spiral, and it's each time I go around, there's the same darn challenge that I have to master from a different way, and then a different way, and then a different way. And we don't incorporate that even into the basics of storytelling. We think story has beginning,
yeah,
middle, and done. And if we add these other pieces that you're adding, and we look at it from a cyclical dynamic rather than an arc, I
yeah.
think it gives us an opportunity also to consciously sort of dig in and see life as an evolutionary process, and not just, oh, if I can just get this stuff done, then I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that the cycling energy, if we take that as the matriarchal energy, and that linear, push on, push ahead, use my word, that kind of energy, that linear energy from the patriarchy, and we bring those two, if you like, geometric forms together, we get a spiral. That's how I see it. So I think that in bringing those two ways of being together, we get growth and evolution and movement, but we get it in a very healthy way, not the way we have it now. And we get to go slow enough to see the whole picture, and we get to acknowledge our own experiences within that, which are obliterated if we're just like, right, got to get to there. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, totally. Well, awesome. So you're going to be speaking at the International Human Design Conference, and you're going to be talking about,
Fun.
feminine DNA and the beautiful, unique body of work that you bring to us. Do you have one last thing you want us to know before you lead us into what we're going to go into?
Do you know, and this is kind of also my thing, when you put asteroids into your human design, you kind of lose touch with type strategy authority. It kind of starts to fade away because the structure of your chart starts to shift. The mechanics of the chart start to shift and change. They get softer, gentler, and more fluid. So, I mean, that's another part of adding all of these extra, additional layers, not just the asteroids, but all the other layers into the work. So that's kind of where I'm sitting really now, is playing with. And my most popular article on my website is about that, but just to start to say, okay, let's just loosen up a bit on that, guys. So
I love that. I really love that. I have not had the courage to come out and say that in that way. And yet I part of what I keep seeing is that everybody has the need to follow divine timing, and that sort of regulates the entire way in which you interact with the world. And I'm still exploring, how do I introduce this idea
of Karen, we could talk. There's so many issues with type strategy authority, and so many people come to me and say, I come to you because I cannot do this. It doesn't make sense to me. It's probably just my not self, they always say to me. It's not your not self. It's it's a really complex thing that needs to be picked apart very gently and with a lot of understanding. It's not that type strategy and authority is evil and needs to be banned. It's that it's too simple. Yeah,
I like that, and I love the beginning of a dialogue that liberates people from what I think especially the types that are defined as projectors. I think they get handed a sort of just sit down, shut up, and we'll see what shows up. And there's a certain amount of, I think, really hurt that comes from that diagnosis, if you will. And
absolutely. And it's the rigidity of it. I get so many people come to me and say, I know human design's really important and I really want to learn it, but I cannot get in through this filter of type, I can't get into it. I don't know how to get into it. So, and I mean, look at if you manifestors as well. Manifestors, in a way. I mean, we all want to be a manifestor, but I know, right? But
it's hard.
Hang on, sarcasm fun. But as well, a lot of them have projector aspects in other areas of their design, and that's really liberating for them to realize that there's parts of them that need to be recognized and get an invitation in some way. Totally. So we start to look at all of that, much more complex way, a much more mature way of looking at the chart. So
totally. Well, and I think our understanding of the system, because it's a system that at least I believe is an expression of where we are in our consciousness.
Yes.
Our understanding of the system is going to evolve. So what we knew in 2000 or 1999 and how we're interpreting it now changes, because
very different.
Has shifted, I think, a lot in the last. A
lot. So. I agree. I mean, ideas that I thought were really whoa, out there, and now I see it, not because I said it, but other people have come to the same conclusions, and that's really wonderful.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I look forward to hearing you at the international conference. And if you guys are interested in learning more about the conference, please visit humandesignstore.com. You're going to learn all about Kim's work. Kim, what is your website so people can go read all those amazing things you've written? And
it's loveyourdesign.com.
Loveyourdesign.com. So go there as soon as you are done listening to this, because you're going to, and go there with the when you have enough time to go take a nap between blog posts, because your mind's going to be so blown, you're going to have to go take a nap to integrate on the parasympathetic.
No, I do.
And then go back and read some more, because there's going to be a tremendous amount of healing and awakening that you'll find there. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Karen.